Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and today I will be talking about what it's like to upgrade from an iPhone SE to the new iPhone 12. Now I'm pretty sure that most of you out there would have made that gradual change to larger smartphones over the years, so this video might be a bit useless to you, but for some of you, like me, who have stayed in that previous time of smaller and lighter smartphones, this video might be a bit more useful. So the first generation iPhone SE was released in 2016 and it came with just 32 and 64 gigs of storage. It was upgraded in 2017 to include 128 gigs of storage, which is the one that I have here. So it's got the same dimensions as the iPhone 5 and 5S, except it's got more updated iPhone 6S hardware inside it. So if you think about it, this design is 8 years old now. So most of you guys won't have even started puberty before this design was conceived. So in terms of dimensions then, the iPhone 12 is about an inch taller and about half an inch wider. In terms of width, if you look really closely, the iPhone SE is very slightly thicker as the screen slightly protrudes, as opposed to the iPhone 12 where the screen is more flush with the edge. And in terms of weight, yeah, I mean, the SE wins all around with this. This thing, it's like comparing a sponge to a brick. This iPhone SE weighs 113 grams, whereas the iPhone 12 weighs 162 grams. And you really feel that difference, especially if you're holding this thing with one hand. So the heavier weight is definitely something that takes a bit of getting used to. So at first, yes, it does feel a bit more chunky in the pockets, but you do get used to it pretty quickly, and at least you know it's there. One great feature you do gain by new smartphones these days, including the 12, is the water resistance. So yes, you can bring your phone into the shower and take naked selfies. Another thing you do gain from upgrading to the 12 is the bigger screen. Yes, it's 6.1 inches diagonally compared to the iPhone SE's 4 inches. And you can see the screen goes right to the edge now. You've got really small bezels. You do have that annoying notch on the top of the 12, unfortunately, which is not to everyone's taste, but it is something you just have to get used to. It's also an OLED display with pretty much double the resolution of the SE. So that means when you watch things on the iPhone 12, things look a lot bigger, a lot more sharper, brighter, and yeah, it's just overall a much better entertainment experience. Unsurprisingly, yes, the processor is going to be excellent as an A14 chip now, as opposed to the iPhone SE's A9. But to be honest, looking at the gameplay from Call of Duty on the SE, it doesn't perform that badly, to be honest, by today's standards. But the problem that you have in playing the games that we have now on such a small screen is that your fingers will get in the way of the experience. So that is one good reason of upgrading to a bigger screen. One thing I did start to get annoyed with on the iPhone SE is that dust can get on the inside of the front and back facing camera. Doesn't look like much, but it does start to make, especially the selfies, a bit blurry. And the iPhone 12 doesn't really suffer from this because it is much more tighter, it's waterproof, so it's a bit better built all round. Speaking of the camera, yes, of course the camera is going to be better on the 12. I mean, there's 2 of them for a start and 3 if you decide to go for the Pro. But it's worth at least showing you what you're getting for your money. If you look at normal daylight conditions, you know, well lit, nice amount of sunlight, you don't notice a massive difference, especially if you look at the plant close up here. The SE still seems to focus quite well with the one camera. Of course, looking at them side by side, you do clearly notice that the iPhone 12 does have better sharpness, dynamic range, but just saying that the iPhone SE doesn't hold up too badly for a 4-year-old phone. On this picture of my tree, both images look fine on both phones, but if you look on the bottom left of the photos, you can see that where the food bin is, the iPhone 12 is definitely able to pick up a lot more details, especially around where the base, where the stone supports are for the fence. Now here is where you start seeing some of the real magic of the iPhone 12 camera. So not that you would ever take a photo like this in real life, it'd be quite ridiculous to look directly at the sun anyway, I wouldn't recommend it. But you look at the iPhone 12, it manages to process light much more effectively, and it still somehow manages to capture all the details around it. Whereas if you look at the iPhone SE, it just becomes all washed out, doesn't really seem to process any details around the sun. And yeah, so you, much more better high brightness processing from the iPhone 12 here. Indoor photos on close-up objects with a reasonable level of light, you can definitely see that the iPhone 12 does have a bit more sharpness in the photo, but the SE still, again, doesn't hold up too badly. So come nighttime then, and yeah, these photos pretty much speak for themselves, don't they? It's quite hard to believe, actually, that these were both taken at exactly the same time, same position, same level of light, and you can just see it. The iPhone 12 just manages to pick up an incredible level of detail, whereas the iPhone SE just looks crap. Now on this photo taken from my garden, exactly the same position looking in towards my living room, the iPhone 12 actually has a slightly wider lens, and yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious, isn't it, that the iPhone 12 image is much more sharper, picks up much more colour, and the contrast is less as well. If you look into the living room, it actually picks up a lot more detail, whereas if you look at the iPhone SE, it's a lot more washed out, a bit more contrasting. The darker areas are more dark, and the bright areas are a bit too bright, whereas the iPhone 12 just tends to correct the dark and highlighted areas much more better, and picking up a lot more detail as well. Moving into the living room then, and I mean, wow, look at the difference. This is also where you are going to get your money's worth if you decide to upgrade. The night mode on the iPhone 12 is incredible. If you look around, well, the whole photo really, starting at where the lamp is, you can see the details around the rug, nice and sharp, picks up all of the fabrics. And if you look at the darker areas towards the right hand side of the image, you can see it still manages to pick up a lot of details around where the laminate flooring is, the shadows behind the teddy bears. It just seems to manage to find the smallest level of light and still be able to create a really sharp and colourful image. Whereas if you look at the iPhone SE, in these kind of conditions, photos pretty much come out useless. In these two images, the light is further reduced in the room, so the only source of light now are from the LEDs that are wrapped around the Christmas tree. And without needing to pay too much attention, you can see that the iPhone 12 quite clearly still manages to pull out a lot of detail, especially if you pay particular attention to the tree itself. You can see the baubles have a load of detail, the curtain as well. Whereas if you look at the iPhone SE, yeah, you can still see some detail, but it's just useless compared to the iPhone 12. So yeah, amazing night mode really. A new feature that you will be able to enjoy if you buy any of the iPhone 12 models is wireless charging. On the iPhone 12 models in particular, you will be able to use MagSafe. So what is MagSafe? Basically, you will be able to charge wirelessly, but if you buy the MagSafe charger, this charger will stick to the back magnetically, providing a more secure connection. It also means that because there is a magnet inside the phone now, you can pretty much stick it to anything that is magnetic, like I'm doing now. And with any of the new iPhone 12 cases, you will still be able to use MagSafe through it because there are magnets inside the cases. You can also buy these MagSafe wallets as well, which you can stick to the back of the phone so you can show off your American Express credit cards. Personally, I don't think that MagSafe is a game-changing feature, for the moment anyway. I mean, yeah, it's cool to stick a leather wallet on the back, but personally for me, all of my stuff's on the Apple Wallet anyway, so I don't see the point of carrying another card with me. And also with the magnetic charger, doesn't really charge any faster. I don't really mind using the wires. So again, with that, how useful is it? The only thing I would say with MagSafe is that there could be a lot of third-party accessories that will be released over the coming months. So it's definitely a space to watch. Moving on to the charging then. So with the iPhone 12, you no longer get a plug. And the cable that you get, the charging cable, is USB-C. They've also excluded earphones as well. Apple say that this is an attempt by them to reduce their carbon footprint by using less packaging. I think that's a big load of bollocks because all of the plugs that I do have are USB-A. So the only place I could actually charge my phone for about a week was via my laptop. That means that people are going to have to go out and buy a USB-C plug, which requires, yep, more packaging. So aside from that complaint, of course, being a new phone and with the battery capacity being pretty much double what it is on the iPhone SE, the iPhone 12 does have a pretty phenomenal battery. I mean, for me, it feels like a huge step up in battery life. The iPhone 12 doesn't quite have on paper the same capacity as the iPhone 11, but if you're coming from an old phone like the first generation SE, it's going to feel like you're jumping into another dimension in terms of battery life. So yeah, on paper, guys, you are getting a massive upgrade in terms of features. Like I said, better camera, better battery, better screen, and so on. But the one thing I do miss with the iPhone SE is just how nice it feels to hold with one hand. One thing you do take for granted after being used to the iPhone SE for so long is just, being able to pick it up quickly after waking up with one hand, just having a quick scroll around, and your thumb just reaches every part of the screen easily. You just can't do that on new phones nowadays just because of how big the screen is. And the sheer size and the weight of it as well, it's not very comfortable to hold for long periods and scroll around with one hand. So yeah, I can only imagine that the iPhone 12 Pro Max must feel like holding a piece of pavement. So yeah, the iPhone 12, fantastic, but that muscle memory that I built up over the years being used to the iPhone 5 and the iPhone SE, that was something that I had to retrain pretty much all over again, and I do miss being able to hold a small and light phone with one hand. The great thing though is that if you decide that you don't want the humongous screen and the heavier handset, you can opt for the iPhone 12 mini, which pretty much gives you all of the other great features except in a much more portable package, and it's also £100 cheaper. Anyway, that's enough talking from me, guys. If you liked this video, please hit the like button. If you didn't like it, please hit thumbs down and explain in the comments why, and also please subscribe to the channel for more incredible videos in the future.